Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here and welcome to Enlightened Conversations. I'm pretty excited as per usual, but really excited today. I've got a wonderful soul sister guest, EJ Love. She's coming live through the waves today energetically. I can feel them. Like, we're so lucky. I hope it translates across to you guys. I'm sure it will. We were chatting about this, and our intention is both very much from a love space. And for those of you who don't know EJ Love, I will mention a little bit about her. EJ Love has a vast knowledge on love, relationships, intimacy, and sex combined, and together they have led her to being aptly dubbed the Love Priestess, where she helps her clients to empower and heal themselves in relationships, love, intimacy, and sex. With studies in love and relationships, as well as personal development, she has created online programs, one-on-one coaching, workshops, and retreats, which have helped hundreds of women and men to release and heal their pasts, to love themselves now and move forward with confidence in their love and sex lives. EJ is regularly featured and interviewed in media, is a speaker, and has regularly published articles in magazines, including our very own Lightworker magazine. And she was on our front cover in July, which was an awesome, beautiful cover. And more recently has come into a new expansion of herself. And I haven't caught up with EJ since the end of, kind of towards the end of last year. It was probably after we bumped into each other in a hotel airport in Bali. That was really random, wasn't it? But how cool is that? Yeah. Love that.
So cool. So cool.
So looking forward to a girly catch up with you.
Thank you. I'm actually really excited to be here as always. I just love everything that you're doing.
Same. And I treasure what you're doing, because I really feel that being this human being in this body that we're actually in, and that everybody's sitting wherever they're sitting or walking or whatever you're doing, we've all got one thing in common, and it's a body, okay? We all have a body if we're a human being. So it's about really being that vessel that we talk about, EJ, like of being that energy of love, but actually allowing that to be in our whole experience as a human being. And that includes sex, and that includes embracing our humanity and our physical bodies. So I really love what you're doing.
Thank you.
So I know that for you, this has been a real journey. I mean, it's over the past solid, like it was five or so years majorly, isn't it, that you've come from one place and you've really moved into who you are. And do you want to share a little bit about your journey, just so that people have a little bit of an idea of where you've been and where you are now, which is amazing.
Yeah, wow, that's how long have we got? Yeah, that's fine. So I guess I've had a fairly interesting journey when it comes to relationships and sex. There's been a lot of my journey, and a lot of people that end up in the field of coaching or healing tend to speak from their own experience. So my experience has really been coming from a place of having a fairly, I guess a normal childhood, but ending up in relationships where, I would feel rejected or abandoned, and I'd ended up in toxicity and abuse. And it was really interesting because I didn't have any abuse growing up, but I got involved in relationships sort of quite at 17 I got married, basically. And I rebelled and I ran away, and I just because my parents separated, and that's kind of part of the story there that kind of started my journey into numbing my life, where I would end up living this pretty wild party lifestyle, and ended up becoming a swinger and had lots of casual sex relationships, and really shut my heart down and avoided connection after my first heartache. And so I was just numbing my life through all these different coping mechanisms and vices, which on that surface kind of looked like I was just having fun. Like party, you know, like sex, partying, you know, drug, sex, rock and roll, that sort of stuff. And then, you know, having all these relationships that were just, you know, self-sabotage or just attracting. I attract a lot of narcissistic relationships. When I look back now, when I discovered what narcissism was, I could see that a lot of the men I attracted definitely had this tendency to be that way. And I would always come from this kind of rescuer, wanting to help people. And I think it's very natural for a lot of us that are, you know, natural born healers, that we tend to end up in relationships where we are wanting to help the person and also avoiding our own stuff. I was going to help people and put the attention.
Yeah, I love that because I really resonate with what you're saying there, because often when we've had our, I don't know, I've seen your posts or whatever it is, and I'm thinking, yes, we're on the same page. It's like, you know, with the narcissist thing, because it's like we only attract narcissists because it's like an externalized immoderate version of what we need to be doing for ourselves, which is taking care and loving ourselves. So we've you know, busy loving everyone else, and then we're kind of disowned in that process the fact that we actually need to be doing that for ourselves, which I know you're a big advocate of. So
totally,
it's quite enlightening for people when they realise that that's how simple it can be to not attracting a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of the things I talk about a lot is just looking at the wounds that keeps being triggered when those people come, especially keep having the same patterns over and over. So through swinging, it led me to work in the sex industry. So that was about 7 years ago now. 6 years ago. And then through about three years ago, I started to discover Tantra, and I started to, after I went through about 5 years ago, I went through, spiritual awakening. And then I discovered that I wanted to add more of, I discovered my healing abilities, and I wanted to add more of that to what I was doing, working in the sex industry as an escort. And so I basically started to bring in Tantra because I discovered that I needed to heal myself first because I was really disconnected sexually. And so then this led me to Tantra and sexual healing, and now also doing sex coaching. So I do, just basically from all my life experiences and all the deep healing work that I've done in the courses and the workshops and the personal development, as you mentioned before, I've really developed my own processes and obviously intuitively as well created things, and to do a whole lot of different programs and workshops and coaching, and it's amazing. I absolutely love what I get to do every day. So that's just a real kind of quick summary of my journey so far.
Yeah, and I think it's really brave and everything that you're able to speak about it, because there's so many of us that have, I believe, externalized that love that we need to be internalizing, and attracted those relationships and wanted to, I guess, use and in our way abuse. Well, yes, definitely abuse ourselves by using sex as a way to get that love, a way to feel good enough, and a way, so many of us have walked that journey. And, I think it's so wonderful that you are able to speak so openly about it. Not only that, but to show people that it can be, well, I believe it is a catalyst for enlightenment. That living that story has led to amazing enlightenment and awakening for you, to the point now where you're able to intuit and create programs that are going to be helpful and healing, that are really cutting edge, because they're right where society is on their consciousness level. And people may have written courses in the past and they are valid, but what I see happening with you is I see that you're really tuning into the real modern day mentality of the millennium generation, you know, a lot of the way you're doing what you're doing is cutting edge, because it's using things like Snapchat and live streams, and you're really onto it, honey. I'm just excited that you're able to do that and attract a whole new level of healing at a younger level too, so that we have that kind of information flooding our society, not just the other, which there's so much of. And so thank you for that, because I can see that it's making massive change and the ripples are incredible. So well done.
Oh, thank you. That's interesting to notice. So yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah. And you just say it how it is too. I just love that about you. You're just like you, and you just, yeah, you don't take you out. I always like to say this is key for enlightened conversations. I like to say, don't ever take you out of the equation. The minute you take you out of the equation, that you think that, yes, in oneness we're all one, and that's the higher order, but you forget you. You forget that you're a multifaceted, gorgeous diamond with so many different aspects to you, that you start to take the diamond too seriously and you lose the shine. And you don't. You don't. You're just brilliant, and you allow yourself to just be all the dimensions of the facets of your diamond. And I'm a big advocate for that, because I feel like the minute we take our humanity, our personality, our quirkiness, our bits and bobs that make us the person that we are, that's not enlightened to me. That's actually anything but. And really awesome that you let yourself be you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's also something that I've learned, particularly in the last year or so, is that I think in the past I would have kind of tweaked things and edited things. And I remember when I first started doing videos, which actually wasn't too long ago, like when I started doing like live streams and stuff, I'd look back and be, oh, I shouldn't have said that and I shouldn't have done that. And now I'm just like, yep, put it out there, whatever, it's going to come out. And it was so funny because it'd be like a 3-minute video, and then I'd kind of go, oh. And now it's just all out there. And yeah, I talk about things like orgasm and just stuff that people don't often just put out there. And I look back, and a year ago, it's like I probably wouldn't have posted something like that, and people have said, oh, I can't believe you post, like, but in a good way. They're like, I love that you posted that, but that you've got balls. I'm like, oh, really? That's just like normal conversation for me. So the more that I've talked about this stuff, the more it just becomes normality, and I forget that it's actually not normal for other people. But yeah. So.
Hey, but that's the hope for this whole show too. Like, I really want this kind of dialogue just to be normal, but a lot of people would be like, oh, do you know, because that's not what they're used to. They tune in, they're used to, oh, Michelle's going to ask a few structured questions to EJ and and she's got an agenda, and it's like, no, actually no. And people are really, I believe, a lot coming into their intuitive faculty and their clairvoyance a lot more now in relation to what they see on television than ever before. And they're just sitting there, I believe, practicing their psychic abilities, reading people, especially reading people who are interviewing other people and reading the people who are answering. So they're like, you know, people are fine-tuning their bullshit detectors, watching television and things like that now. That's how they're actually developing their psychic abilities in modern day. You do it, I do it, we all do it, right? We do. And that will be how we make our choices of where we want our face to be or what have you as well. Because not everybody's going to represent what we're about the way we authentically feel we're going to, you know, we want to get the message across. And if you've got people challenging it, sure. But if they've got a hidden agenda, then if you can read it ahead of time, why wouldn't you? And then put your energy somewhere else where it's much more effective. So, yeah, I'm a big believer that, just be ourselves and role model that. Is there so much power in that, EJ? So much power in that. No idea how much power that is. So powerful. And when I look at like little kids, that is how they learn what they learn from their parents, is the role modeling. It's not the parents saying, do this, do that. It's what the parents do. And if you look at society as emotionally disabled, a lot of people are because they're out of touch with their feelings or what have you. They need a shitload of role modeling to get them to see what is a functional conversation, how do people actually speak, what does it look like, and so hence how we're doing what we're doing, giving people permission to speak about their authenticity, what's really real for them. That's massive, I reckon. I think that's a great big time society change in consciousness and expansion.
Yeah, totally. I think with social media in particular, we're just getting so much more of a voice now, and to just say exactly what's coming up for us. And I think for me, I'm really lucky to have, and you would be the same, you know, just people on my Facebook who are, you know, really focused on helping people and really have a mission and a message. So when I go onto my Facebook every day, like I constantly bombarded with, you know, inspiration, and it's so amazing. Yeah, it's so cool.
Love it. I know you get the occasional random person that you think, oh, I must have accepted their friend request unconsciously. But anyway, it's, you know, that we're not relating on that level that I'm here for. And if that's the case, that's cool. They're still serving a purpose too. And they still show me how far I've come as well. And also how clear I am.
Yeah.
About what I feel.
Yeah.
You know, we're still learning how much we don't really know we know, as much as how much we know we don't know as well. But we're still sometimes I'm still catching up with myself going, shit, I know that. Oh, how did I know that? You know, because it came through, what have you. But I've still got that human part that goes, wow, I know that. That's really clear in me, you know, and that person sounds really like all over the place or confused or what have you, but no judgment. It's just okay. Of
course.
What's floating your boat right now? I'm curious.
Oh, okay. What's floating my boat? I can't even talk my boat because I'm so excited. Men are floating my boat right now. The last few months, probably the last 6 months actually, I've really taken this focus on healing the relationship I have to men. You know, I'm at the point where, you know, obviously I've experienced these abusive, toxic relationships, and I did a lot of healing in the last 2 years, well, probably the last 3 years around that. But specifically, the last 6 months has all been about looking at how am I really showing up in the world in relation to men, and how can I love them better? How can I love them? And because I work with men, you know, obviously working in the sex industry, you know, seeing men, I've worked with thousands of men. And so now as a, you know, tantra practitioner and sexual healer, I have men come to me that come for healing, and they come for learning. And I see men in a different light rather than before. You know, men would come, you know, I mean, often they're coming for company or intimacy. Some are just wanting to get these needs met for sexual expression. And, you know, I could have a filter there that I'm just a body to them, or I'm just, you know, I'm just being used for sex, or, you know, even though I'm being paid for it, it's like I'm just, you know, that was just a job. I was getting paid to provide men with sex, basically. And so, you know, I really had to look at kind of my belief systems around men. And so I've noticed how much my work has shifted and my clients have shifted simply because of that, because I'm showing up differently. And I have actually recently, yesterday, I was writing about men and how I see men, and noticing that, you know, I sit with men in my sessions and we look into each other's eyes. And it's just so beautiful, because it's just like to see like these, when I'm with them, they like their masks just drop. And instead of seeing them coming in, you know, to be with a, you know, a blonde woman with a curvy body, you know, I see them coming in with wanting to connect, with really wanting to drop into their heart space and looking for something deeper in their lives. And, you know, I get the guy, you know, I had a guy yesterday who was like, my wife is really ill and we can't, you know, there's no intimacy, and, you know, she's just so ill. And I was just like, I felt like this empathy for him, like this poor guy, like, you know, he's probably, you know, absolutely loves his wife, but he's not getting his needs for intimacy met. And we were exploring, it was a tantra massage session. So this is a way of him getting those needs met in a really healthy way. And I have clients like it all the time. They come because, they're having issues around not being able to perform properly and not being able to please their woman. And what I've really learned is how much, it's so beautiful, men really want to please and provide for us. Like, they want to be our hero. And we as women are not, so as a whole, are really not allowing them to do that. We are like, I'm independent and I'm strong and I don't need a man. So I'm just going to, women tend to emasculate men. It's quite common these days because of what's happened in the past around us feeling, especially if we've experienced abuse, we have to be safe and we have to take control, and we're not going to let a man control us or tell us what to do. So I'm just going to do it myself. And this is when the rescuing and stuff can come in. So it's really, really interesting. And just for me, it's been this real switch from going to that Miss Strong, independent, rescuer, control type of place to having to drop into really receiving and appreciating and acknowledging, and just, it's just a real big flip. And to noticing, okay, where men are showing up for me with love, where they're showing up for me in appreciation, where they're wanting to help me, and I haven't been letting them. Like, I was like, oh, they must want something from me. They must expect something from me if they're giving to me. And it's like, I've been in such a noticing the last 6 months of where my head's going and just being aware. Yeah, it's really interesting. I'll give you a quick example. I was at the gym the other day and I had this drink bottle. It's a cool drink bottle. And one of the trainers came up. He was like, oh, that's a cool drink bottle. And then another one of the trainers come up. I was on my last set at the gym and he took my drink bottle. And I was like, my first thought was, oh, he's stealing my drink bottle. Why is he taking my drink bottle? And then the other trainer was like, oh, he's going to fill it up for you. I mean, I didn't say it. I hadn't said that out loud. I thought it in my head. And I was like, oh, where is he going? Like, I'm going to need that. And then he went and he filled it up for me and he brought it back. And I was like, oh, and then in my head went to, oh, it's because my drink bottle was so cool. He just must. And what about he just wanted to do a nice thing and fill up my drink bottle for me, And it was almost like there's a story. I was like, why would he fill up the bottle for me? Like, why is he not filling it up for anyone else? Like, it was just noticing. I just noticed, and I made that a constant practice. So this is what's what's floating my boat at the moment, is just looking at, as women, how we are relating to men and what are our stories and our filters, and how are we showing up. That is actually disempowering us. Yeah.
I love that. I can so relate to that. And I was talking to someone the other day about the fact that my current husband, who we've been together 10 years this year, and I was saying, like, if I'd met him, 20 years ago, I probably would have been put off by him, because there were men that were like him around me that I would have nothing to do with, because I felt so uncomfortable with the fact that they were so generous and so giving. It made me feel sick. And that, for me, was a sickness, that I felt sick when someone wanted to give to me. And so I can relate to what you're saying, is that, we need, and the way we are able to not emasculate men when they're coming from the giver, or the masculine energy of giving, the yang energy towards us, is to be comfortable in our yin, or our receptivity, isn't it? But we can't do that if we haven't given to ourselves already. And so it did take a bit of practice. But not only that, for me, I remember I just made a decision one day, just like that. I just went, you know what, I'm just going to be fucking comfortable with receiving from now on. That's it. I deserve it. There's no reason why I shouldn't. And I'm just going to be. And it was that switch, not just I'm willing to be, but I'm going to be. I've decided I'm going to be comfortable with it. I'm going to be comfortable with loving myself. I'm going to be comfortable with being selfish and putting myself first if I need to take care of myself. I'm going to be comfortable. And I just made this decision. And seriously, it was not very long after that I actually met Tony. And I was, it was just like, Okay, you're here. I wasn't quite ready for a full-time relationship at that stage. I think I shared this with you before. I wasn't quite ready when I met a full-time relationship. I just want to go play, because I'd been in relationships for 11 years straight and I didn't want to have a relationship. But it was like too much, the energy around the relationship was obviously, now 10 years later, knowing how it is, it was too much to ignore. And even physiologically, I had a nosebleed and things like that because I was denying what I needed to do. So it's kind of interesting, though, to come from a place of that masculine energy and then really own the decision to step, not to not be in the masculine ever in our relationship, because I'm very giving, he is too, but to be able to do this, to be able to do that is really cool. And and to take the blinkers off and not see it's about men, but it's just about the energy flowing. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's so much to it. It's just, it's been so interesting learning about it and really having to take self-responsibility as well. And I think, a lot of the reasons that we sort of don't allow ourselves to receive is because it's very vulnerable. And because receiving means that we have to be seen and we have to feel worthy of it. And so often we just, we'll make ourselves not worthy. We'll tell ourselves that we'll make it, we'll justify it somehow. Like, the drink bottle example was like, I was somehow justifying, well, that can't be that he's doing that for me. It must be because of this thing, and it's not really about me. Or maybe it is that he's wanting something else. Or, it was like it's like some story about why you're not worthy of receiving love from men, especially if you haven't felt like you've received a lot in the past or in childhood. You may have had, it's interesting actually. I always felt my dad was a very loving, kind father. And we actually had a conversation though, which was really hard because I couldn't understand, how did I end up in abusive relationships if I hadn't been abused as a child? I was like, kind of like, well, most people have had this childhood experience. But what I also discovered was that this whole idea of that this confusion of the making love and abuse being the same thing, where, you basically get told off for doing something. Like as simple as like, I can remember my dad I'd misbehave or do something, that would seem like misbehaving. And then, get, the smack, back, people obviously don't do that as much now, but back in, when I was a child, it was normal for you to get get a smack. And I remember that. And then, after that you'd have a cry and then you'd be like, okay, come and get a hug, come and get some love. And so I see that in, my past relationships, I would, had a big fight, and then in the next morning it would be like, oh, I'm sorry, like let's, be that love again. So it was like that kind of like that payoff of getting the abuse and then getting the love. So I think, it's like receiving love without, needing to have done something wrong or to have misbehaved, or just receiving love for receiving love, and identifying what really what that is, and knowing that you can you are worthy of receiving that. And of course, that is about just giving that to yourself first. But also I had to kind of rewire, what, like getting an idea of what love is, so that was really interesting to look at those, associations that we can have of how love has shown up. So my dad, sorry, I was going to get to this. My dad interestingly said that, we sat down, and he's quite spiritual and, conscious these days. And he said, oh, I want to talk to you about something, is that, when you're a child, I felt like that I used to take love away from you. And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't understand. Like, I thought you were like, I was like daddy's little girl. He's like, no. Like sometimes I was around and I was there and I loved you, but then sometimes I just would kind of energetically pull away, and I would just be like, oh no, I can't be there right now. And I never felt that, but I would have actually felt that. I would have felt this love being taken away. So yeah, it was really interesting that he brought that up, because that's led to my relationships being very push-pull, like back on and off, or, you know, I'd push them away and then I'd bring them back and I'd push them away. And it's so that kind of patterning is really, really interesting. And that fear of the man taking the love away, that if I give him love, then it will be taken away, or I will get hurt, or that sort of stuff can have definitely played out. So it's really interesting, because, you know, men actually do want to be there for us, do want to be present for us, but we've got to allow that to happen. So we've got to allow them to be there and be vulnerable, and know that, you know, maybe they might not be present all of the time, but just not make that mean anything about us and our worthiness to be loved. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's a great observation, isn't it? Hey, and then a validation from your dad around that. Wow, I just love like when we're willing to explore something, and spirit sends the information, and you know, you say, I'm gonna explore more of this stuff around men. What's going on with me with that? And then you're given all this information to clarify exactly where those patterns may have started on that frequency, or that pattern that you got used to, and how that's, I guess the way I see it is that was a microcosm. And then you experienced the full-blown macrocosm of that, you know, the big, you know, stuff in relationships, the toxicity, the abuse and all that kind of stuff, because of the rumblings back then. And so, yeah, I think that's really helpful for people to hear, because it helps them, because, you know, you do hear this, don't you? You do hear this, oh, no, I had a fine childhood, but why do I have shit relationships? I don't get it, you know? And so, oh, well, you know, there might be a few little rumblings there that no one had the intention of making your childhood shit, but you know, there were still some components to it, because we are here. EJ, I think this is how I look at relationships. We're always in relationship to something at any given moment in time. We're never not relating. We're always in relation. And so how important are relationships? And you can't say that we've perfected them. And so we've, you know, been this little child, you know, along this journey, and you don't have to label your childhood as bad or parents as bad in order to say, well, I'm still learning how to do relationships, actually. And this is my experience as a child with relationships, with connecting, with love, with feeling loved. That I think that kind of exploration is quite awesome, because it really gives permission for people to say, well, hey, perfect childhood, no perfect childhood, who cares? I'm going to give myself permission to explore what's going on for me in the here and now with the dynamics that I'm in or attracting. And I think that's extraordinarily important, really, in order to change form, so that our relationships are based on equality, giving and receiving love, and feeling that connection.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. And, you know, we're definitely always in relationship to something, because we're always in relationship with ourselves. So, which is the number one relationship. So, yeah, and I like what you said about, you know, we think that sometimes, you know, and I hear it a lot, it's like, oh, well, I didn't have anything major happen in childhood. I had an amazing childhood. And I think because that's how I used to be too, and it was like almost not wanting to make my childhood wrong, like not wanting to make it like, you know, because you hear all these horror stories and you almost think, well, you know, what is wrong with me if I had this amazing childhood? Like, how did I end up so fucked up? But then when you start to really delve into it, you're like, oh, it's when you start to go really deep with it, like I do with my clients, we start to get some things that you just like, oh, there's some, you know, that can be so little. It can be something so tiny that someone said to you once, and you just, which was pretty like not even the thing that you might have thought it was. And so, or it can be that energetic thing, like, yeah, it's just, there's so much there when you start to get into it. And it's really just, and of course there are the big things too, especially, if, parents, if there was abuse, or parents, leave, things like that, or, even, there might have been death. And so, there can be massive things as well, but there can be, like, even if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, nothing really major happened, like, I mean, I even talk about how with a lot of my male clients, that have been circumcised, that's been seen as normal in the past, and that's extremely traumatic, which can lead to a lot of sexual trauma in the future, and emotional trauma, and lack of self-worth, and all sorts of stuff, which no one would really even think about. So that's a really interesting topic.
Oh, totally. And then you've got the women who don't want to do it if they're not circumcised. It's like, what's that about? It's like rejecting natural anatomy because they've been conditioned a certain way. And it's just like, wow. Then that adds to and perpetuates perhaps any shame and insecurity or trauma towards a man. And I can see all that, like, just so clear, how that would work.
Yeah, exactly. See, I'm the other way around. I mean, actually, both are beautiful. Circumcised and uncircumcised, both are beautiful. But the man that hasn't been circumcised doesn't need as much healing. So, fortunately, I know how to heal. So, if I have men come into my life, and they're open to it, then we can support a little bit of healing there. But they're missing out on a lot of pleasure that is in the nerve endings of the foreskin. So, yes. So it's actually, and it can actually have more pleasure for the woman as well. So lots of beautiful benefits there. So, who cares what it looks like, really?
I know. I've got two things come up that I want to... we'll try and fit it all in. The first thing is that I just wanted to say, I think it's really important to say this because I'm a mum and I have two daughters and they're both almost, well, one's an adult and one's almost an adult, that when you're working on yourself and you're done a lot of work and then you expect, and that you think that you've given your children a red hot go at a good childhood, which I think I have. Because I was conscious for most of that. So don't put the expectation on yourselves that they won't have their issues because that's inappropriate. Children will, that they've got their own journey, and you can't, spirituality for the perfection of being a perfect parent is, I think it's a big thing. I think there's a lot of parents that go, I want to get spiritual so I can parent my kids perfectly so that my kids aren't wrong, like, that kind of thinking. Oh my God. And I think that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And I think that it's unrealistic expectation to put on your child as well. So I just want to speak to that because I feel like this is a red hot topic that's come up between you and I with regards to your childhood, and me as being a mum can totally relate to, because your kids are going to have their stuff. They're going to have their relationship issues with themselves, other people, their relationship with spirit, their relationship with their, they're still finding who they are. So that's a big one. Does that come into your sphere in your work as well? Do you have a lot of, insofar as, there might be things where, people are having issues with their intimacy issues in the bedroom because they have such high expectations of themselves that they they have so much shame or can't connect to themselves because they're, do you know where I'm coming from here?
Yeah, totally. It's so funny you say that about the parenting thing, because a part of me says to myself, I'm so glad that I haven't had kids yet, because I really would have fucked them up if I had them earlier. But in saying that, I was like, but I have all the tools and processes that would really help them. So I think, like you say, everyone's on their own journey, and, we're only human. People are going to go through whatever they need to go through in their life. They have their lessons, and totally. I have lots of, and hang on, before I get there, is that, it's like what you said before, we don't know what we don't know. So I have people that come to me with absolutely no awareness that they might not, that they don't even understand shame. Like, they're not aware that that's actually a thing, right? That's something that is affecting their sex life, that's keeping them stuck, that's being held in their body, that's blocking them. And then the beauty of what I do, and it's not something that I go out and I say, how do I explain this? The beauty of what I do is that when people come and talk to me, they get a healing just by talking to me, because the key to healing shame is talking to someone about it and not being judged. Exactly. And having, and the person goes, oh, that's okay. Like, that's normal. I'm not alone. Like, that's wow. Because right. And especially, if they want to express, I encourage my clients to say, hey, like, if you're feeling sexual desire, if something's coming up for you, I want you to share that with me. I want you to express it. Even if I can't meet those needs for you, I'm going to be okay with it, because I'm strong on my boundaries, and I'm not going to go into a story about, whereas in the past I may have gone into a story about, well, that's inappropriate and this is this, and that's wrong, or that's this, I may have gone to a story. But now, because of the work I do, I really hold space for them to express themselves and open up, and have me not judge them. So that's really important to me. And it's been definitely something that I've had to kind of rewire as well, because I've had my own stories and filters and things like that. And so people just, they come and not, sometimes they really don't know what they're coming for, but they know that there's something has to shift. They know that that something's going to come up or change. And I just love that I get to provide that space for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is awesome. I agree. It's like, I think that's one of the main reasons why, as a clinical counsellor for many years, I would self-disclose all over the place, probably more than the Australian Counselling Association wanted me to, but for me, the feedback I'd get from my clients was, well, when you talk about it, you make it okay, so then I can talk about it. So there was that really big element for me of, don't hold anything back. If something's relevant, share it with them, because that shows them and demonstrates, and role models that there's no need to be ashamed of what you're going through. It's great perfection, and what I call perfection recovery, to be able to share the parts of us that, perhaps we feel aren't perfect, and to share what those parts do. And I think that's really important, because we can't come back into the middle. We can't come back into the light if we don't shine it on the places that feel dark. And so it's wonderful that you can hold a space for that, for people, because that will help them come more into their body, literally. Because you know what, when we're shutting down, we're shutting down. And I saw a little barometer thing where it had shame at the bottom, and then it had like enlightenment at the top. It was kind of interesting. In between, there were all these other emotions, but I kind of thought that was really interesting. And so, imagine if you take a little bit of that enlightenment, which is the 700 megahertz vibrational frequency, and you dip it down into that shame. What it does, it catapults people up to have an experience of enlightenment and aha moment, and to really feel that freedom, because it's so heavy and it's so dense, that frequency. To unlock it, you just feel you can breathe again, right? You can breathe again. I mean, that would be a huge part of, I would imagine, your work, that you feel that to see that transformation. I know I have too, to see people really come into themselves and awaken. It's amazing.
Yeah, I get a lot of people just say that, it's been so liberating. And I actually say this about working in the sex industry, is that, we don't really see, I guess, in society, we don't think, sex workers are necessarily healers, but I believe that they are, because a lot of people will talk to sex workers about things they would not tell their closest friends, their partners. They will not tell anyone. They'll say things like, and I get this a lot in general, like people say to me, they'll come up, I might just meet someone for the first time and they'll be like, I've never told anyone this before, but I feel like I can tell you. And they'll tell me something. And so, one of the things working in the sex industry is that people, I guess because there's so much judgment and shame directed towards the sex industry, is that because you work in it, people think that if they work in this, then I can tell them this. Like, obviously they've got no shame. They must, because of the judgment on it. And so people will open up, but also no, there's no connection to the outside world. We're not going to go tell anyone. We're not emotionally connected to them, all this sort of stuff. So I believe that, sex workers really provide this beautiful space for people to actually be able to heal some of their shame. And when we sit there and go and listen and provide empathy, which a lot of people in the industry do, then we're actually providing a space of healing for that person. And so that's really beautiful. And I just think that, we need to make people know that. That's really what the power that happens there. And you're right, like the more people are, healing shame, the more that the world is going to be enlightened, right? So the more we start making ourselves wrong and looking at looking at the love, like looking at what's loving about this and what more can I love about me, or what is it that I'm judging in me that I can choose to love, and how can I go about loving that? So shame, I'm big on healing shame. It's a big thing that I'm passionate about.
It's awesome. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up that came through as we were talking about circumcision was the whole vaginal reconstruction surgery thing that a lot of women are getting operations now to look like more what they think may be the ideal looking vagina, which is, often portrayed a certain way in porn and things like that. So they're getting their lips reduced and things like that. And I feel like kind of, I just feel like there's, unnecessary shame on women's sexual organs that they think they need to go ahead and do that. I mean, everyone, each their own how they want to look, but I also feel like there's, I'm of the bigger mind. I don't really mind what people do surgery-wise, as long as there's a loving impulse behind it. But if there's a shame-based impulse behind it, it just feels like it's contributing something to that area of their body that's unenlightened. So what's your view on all of that, EJ?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, don't want to shame or judge people for their choice to go and do that. But at the same time, it's like, where is that coming from? Is that coming from there's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough, or if people are going to love me or my vagina, I need to change it. And so, interestingly enough, I've had a bit of a journey with this myself. And as you're talking, I was like, I need to do a video on how I learned to love my vajayjay, which actually came from working in the sex industry. Because, back when I was younger and I would hear things like, that girl's got big flaps, or, that maybe that's not attractive and all that sort of stuff. And I can actually remember having a conversation in a toilets at one point. I was at a party and there's two girls in the toilets and they were like a bit drunk and they're like, I've got big lips. And the other girl was like, I've got big lips. I've got big lips. And I was like, oh my God, it's normal. And
it triggered that memory. I think you were on Snapchat. You go, I've got big lips, and I cannot.
Flaps. That was really.
I was bopping along to that.
Yeah, I had an idea that I was going to create like a parody video of the song I Like Big Butts, but called I Like Big Flaps. And
I'll be in it.
No, I still need to do it, but So for me, what I found is obviously working in the sex industry, I had a lot of men that would give me a lot of compliments and a lot of tell me how much they actually have fuller lips. It's interesting because I hadn't really thought about it too much before until I heard a couple of comments. Someone had said, that girl's got, someone made a, maybe not a compliment, but like a remark and so it was like the more that I sort of started to look after my vagina and connect to the vagina, and to even introducing things like yoni massage and just loving it in that way, then it like doesn't really matter what it looked like. And so I was just like, oh, I've got more to play with, right? So my view is that, it's all about just caring and loving what we've got, and really self-caring that. And, everyone's going to have different opinions and different judgments based on, their own experiences and their own filters. And, there are going to be, maybe there's going to be people out there that like a certain type, but, I've found that I've done just fine and been very successful with my vagina. And it isn't certainly in no way perfect. But what is perfect? Like, what is a perfect vagina? Like, I mean, mine's pretty multi-orgasmic these days. So to me, in my eyes, that's pretty perfect.
Bang on.
Yeah, exactly. Pun. Which is one of the reasons why I've got a, the Orgasmic Women's Sexual Healing Program that I run regularly, which is actually just started. So, if anyone's watching is interested in, learning to love their vagina a bit more and learning to, or yoni in Tantra we call it, which means divine place, is beautiful. That, and we do a lot of sacred yoni care, and also learning to become more multi-orgasmic and experience lots of different types of orgasms. So for me, my focus is not about how it looks. It's more about how I look after it and how it feels, because if we're judging it on how it looks, then we're going to actually be disconnected from the pleasure. Because,
exactly. It's back to that thing that we were talking about before, is that we're always relating to something, and we're either connecting or we're disconnecting, and in relationship to our vagina. And it's like, well, what kind of relationship do we have? Is it a connected one, or is it a disconnected one? Is it a judgmental one, or is it an all-embracing one? Where are we with our because I think we tend to disown actual chunks of our body sometimes.
Totally.
But I know we're sort of almost out of time, and I really want to, of course, I mean, it's never going to be enough time with you, sweetheart, but I want to make sure people can find you, and make sure, I know that there's some upcoming stuff happening, so please feel free to let people know that now.
Yeah, sure. That time went like super fast. Wow. So I've got some retreats. I've got a retreat in Bali coming up in June. As I said, I've got my Orgasmic Women's Sexual Healing online program, and I also have another program which is about, really self-love, relationship with self, so that you can be in a healthy soulmate relationship. So, and I've got also a movement called the Naked Woman Rising, which is all to do with, owning the parts of us that have been shamed, whether that's, sexually or with our bodies, or just for anything really that we may have felt ashamed about, that we are willing to, step up and own. And so that's about getting really emotionally naked, as well as, being physically naked and happy with our bodies. So I've got a lot of different things that I do, and it's always shaping and evolving, and especially, been doing a lot of work around loving men, and setting up women's like mini events and things like that. So that's heaps of fun, and I do a lot of that at my retreat. We really look at the, our relationship to men. So there'll be plenty more of that coming. Yeah. And
you've got lots of stuff. You've got Snapchat. You've got what's your Snapchat handle again?
Yeah. So Snapchat, is EJ Love Angel on Snapchat. Yeah.
So
and
funny.
then,
it's so hilarious, sweetheart.
Thank you.
You do little updates in all your little characters. It's so funny.
I know.
And I just love it. You just let yourself be whatever mood you're in. Good on you, honey.
I love talking about doing sex tips in funny voices and characters. It's pretty interesting, I think. I should just do that all day, every day. I could, really. And then ejlove.com is my website, which has everything sort of on there that you can find all my events, and then at Facebook, EJ Love Priestess on there. So got all the bases covered.
Yay. And I'm really excited to see what happens. Like I just feel like it's kind of, you know, when you get in touch with someone and you've got similar journeys and you're like doing them in different ways and all that kind of stuff, but it's exciting to watch the parallel lives, what's happening, and I'm definitely riveted. I'm at the edge of my seat, and I hope that people feel the same way about you, because if they can see what I see, they'll see somebody who's really pioneering some amazing work in helping people to really reclaim and love themselves in very deep, deep, deep ways that in humanity, in that sphere of humanity. So important. Let's not fear it. Let's embrace it. That's we're here, and we've got this body, as I said, and you know, let's enjoy it while we're here in this form.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I've just loved having this conversation. I love that it was just, you just didn't know where it was going to go. Circumcision, vaginas, men.
Exactly.
Love it. Yeah, love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you can catch EJ on Facebook, her website, Snapchat. Go right ahead and do that. Do yourself a favor. She's an awesome being in this world, and she's sharing the love in extraordinary ways.